Take your mask off and defy! That's why I'm here!
In the records of crime, there are those whose actions defy comprehension, leaving us questioning the very essence of humanity. Some killers are not just murderers, they are the symbol of evil, their souls lacking appreciation, and their hearts untouched by the weight of guilt.
I am very sorry for what I did, and I have to live with it every day.
But what exactly drives these remorseless killers to commit such evil acts? And how do they maintain their composure in court? Join us as we unravel 15 of the most ruthless killers who showed no remorse in court. Number 15. Paul Bernardo. We might have come across the notorious tale of the Barbie and Ken killers, Paul Bernardo and Karla Homolka. Paul, the Ken in this duo, is known for his evil crimes. While Karla, the Barbie, has been released from prison, Paul remains imprisoned, showing utter disrespect for his victims and their families. Born in 1964 in Ontario, Canada, Paul's upbringing was far from ordinary. Growing up amidst domestic commotion, he witnessed his father's abusive behavior towards his older sister, leaving deep scars on his spirit. His mother, grappling with severe mental illness, was incapable of shielding her children from their father's cruelty. Despite his charming face, Paul harbored a threatening side from a young age, indulging in destructive behavior like firebombing and abusing his girlfriends. Karla, despite being aware of his dark attachment, fell in love with him, even fueling his darker desires. Together, they embarked on a spree of abuse, with victims including her own sister Tammy, who tragically lost her life at just 15. His reign of terror extended beyond his known victims, with authorities suspecting him of numerous other violent assaults. Throughout his trials, Paul attempted to avoid accountability, shifting blame onto her, though she maintains that he pressured her into aiding his crimes. During his sentencing, Bernardo remained largely dispassionate, showing little outward emotion as he was handed down multiple life sentences for his crimes. He did not display any significant reaction or emotional outburst upon receiving his sentence, further adding to his reputation for cold detachment. Karla, through a plea deal, secured her release from prison in 2006. However, Paul remains imprisoned, shuffled between prisons due to threats on his life from fellow inmates. The intricacies of their partnership remain dark, leaving lingering questions about the true dynamics of their relationship and the extent of their depravity. Number 14. Jeremy Christian. Arrested for the brutal murder of 2 men aboard a Max light rail train in Portland, Oregon, in May 2017, Jeremy Christian perpetrated an evil act that shook the city to its core. His victims, 53-year-old retired Army officer Ricky John Best and 23-year-old Talisa Murata Namkai Meche, tragically lost their lives to his senseless violence. Christian also attacked 21-year-old Micah Fletcher, who miraculously survived the ordeal. The incident began with his horrible outburst, captured on tape, where he spewed anti-Muslim and racist anger at 2 black teenagers aboard the train. This hateful behavior provoked outrage among fellow passengers who confronted him, protecting the frightened teenagers who had sought refuge at the back of the carriage. Despite attempts to calm the situation, Christian escalated matters by flaunting a knife, ultimately resorting to fatal stabbings. Even after the deadly attack, he heartlessly persisted. He ruthlessly fled the scene, leaving behind a trail of devastation. However, several brave passengers pursued him, alerting authorities and ensuring his eventual arrest. In a shocking display of apathy and arrogance, he boasted about his horrifying deeds, showing no remorse for the lives he had mercilessly taken. His actions extended beyond this horrific event. Evidence of his violent past emerged during the trial, revealing previous assaults and racial tirades. His courtroom behavior was equally shocking. He threatened the relatives of his victims and demonstrated contempt for the judicial process. Despite the gravity of his crimes, he remained resistant, showcasing his allegiance to extremist ideologies. Upon sentencing, he received 2 consecutive life terms, with an additional 25 years for his prior offenses. His reprehensible actions not only robbed innocent lives, but also exposed the dark underbelly of extremism that threatens societal harmony. Number 13. Randall Moore. Randall Moore is a man whose descent into darkness culminated in a series of horrific crimes that shook the community to its core. Before his evil acts, Moore was once seen as an average individual, leading an unassuming life. However, beneath the face of regularity lurked a deeply troubled soul, consumed by jealousy and rage. His story and Therese Ann Lynch's troubled relationship was one marred by tension and fear. Friends and family members had often witnessed volatile arguments between the two, with Lynch confiding in close friends about Moore's increasingly controlling behavior in the months leading up to their separation. As she bravely took steps to break free from the shackles of abuse by leaving Moore and filing a protective order against him, little did she know it would trigger a harrowing chain of events. Moore's obsession with control and dominance reached its zenith when he decided that if he couldn't have her, then no one else would. On that fateful day, Officer Todd Rowland found himself sent into the midst of a nightmare as he responded to frantic calls for help from Lynch's apartment. His bravery in the face of danger is proof of the courage exhibited by law enforcement officers in the line of duty, risking their lives to protect others. The chilling phone call between Moore and the 911 dispatcher captured the essence of a man consumed by his own illusion of entitlement and revenge. Despite claiming to only want to see his infant son, Moore's actions spoke volumes about his true intentions, as he unleashed a wave of terror that would forever scar the lives of those involved. During the trial, the judge delivered the verdict, condemning Moore to 3 consecutive life sentences, plus an additional 25 years for attempted murder. The courtroom fell silent, and he remained unrepentant. Number 12. Nicholas Cruz. On February 14, 2018, a young man named Nicholas Cruz, just 19 years old and once a student of Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, carried out a horrifying attack that claimed the lives of 17 innocent people and left 17 others wounded. He showed up at the school around 2:19 p.m., just as classes were about to end, and started shooting. Panic ensued as he fired shots left and right. Cruz then fled on foot, seeking refuge at a nearby subway, where he desperately begged a frightened student for a ride home. His rampage marked the deadliest high school shooting in U.S. history. Eventually, authorities caught up with him in a nearby park, where he was arrested. During his trial, his defense team argued that his actions were a result of mental health issues and developmental problems from his birth mother's substance abuse during pregnancy. They emphasized the damage caused by prenatal exposure to alcohol and drugs. It's a sad reality that some women continue risky behavior during pregnancy, ultimately harming their unborn children. During the trial, Cruz's behavior was shocking. He showed no remorse, even displaying disrespectful acts in court, flipping off the judge and laughing. It's hard to understand how someone could be so heartless. Before his sentencing, victims' families had the chance to confront him directly, expressing their pain and loss. One mother recounted watching her daughter being killed on video, her grief visible as she described the devastation he labored. As the trial drew to a close, Judge Elizabeth Scheer delivered the verdict: life in prison without the possibility of pardon. He remained unimpressive, indifferent to the suffering he caused. His lack of remorse was chilling. In the end, Cruz received 34 consecutive life sentences, one for each victim he murdered or injured. Number 11. Nathaniel Mitchell. Nathaniel Mitchell's story is like a chilling chapter in the annals of crime. Born and raised in the rough streets of Southampton, he was drawn into the world of gangs at a young age. The Bloods, with their fierce reputation, seemed like the path to power and respect. Little did he know that it would lead him down a dark and violent road. The 9 trade gangsters of Virginia, a faction within the Bloods, operated with ruthless efficiency. They weren't just a group of aimless thugs, they had a hierarchy, codes, and a twisted sense of honor. Mitchell quickly rose through the ranks, earning a reputation for his brutality and cunning. The crime spree of 2015 shook the entire region to its core. Innocent lives were cut short, families torn apart, and communities left in fear. But amidst the chaos, law enforcement agencies rallied together, launching one of the largest and most intense manhunts in Virginia's history. The trial of Nathaniel Mitchell was a spectacle in itself. His courtroom outbursts, fueled by a mix of rage and desperation, painted a clear picture of a man consumed by his own darkness. Witnesses recounted harrowing tales of survival, each one a proof of the resilience of the human spirit in the face of unspeakable evil. But even behind bars, his influence lingered like a threatening shadow. Rumors spread of his continued involvement in gang activities, organizing crimes from the confines of his prison cell. As the years passed, the memory of the 9 trade gangsters faded into legend. But for those who lived through those dark days, the scars would never fully heal. Number 10. Camia Gamut. In the courtroom, a chilling tale happened regarding the tragic demise of Marcel Hill, age 38, at the hands of his girlfriend, Gamut. Their shared life in Michigan took a dark turn in May 2018, when Gamut, in a fit of rage, unleashed a violent assault on Hill. Witnesses recounted how she wreaked havoc throughout their apartment, wielding various objects as weapons. When police responded to frantic calls from neighbors, they found Hill lifeless and Gamut drenched in blood. The evidence spoke volumes: a blood-stained frying pan, a knife dripping with blood red, and a shattered floor lamp. Prosecutors painted a grim picture, alleging she had mercilessly stabbed Hill multiple times. Despite her claims of self-defense, the sheer brutality of the attack contradicted her narrative. How could she mistake her longtime partner for an assailant? Her defense crumbled under scrutiny, especially when it became apparent she had inflicted a dozen stab wounds and relentless blows with the frying pan. Undeterred, she persisted in her assertions of innocence during the trial. She adamantly portrayed herself as a victim of falsehoods, despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary. Her defiance only fueled the frustration of Judge John McBain, who didn't mix words in his condemnation. Even as Hill's family delivered heart-wrenching victim impact statements, she displayed a disturbing lack of remorse, provoking the ire of the court. Judge McBain's patience wore thin as her disruptive behavior persisted. He severely warned her, threatening to silence her if necessary. Yet even the threat of tape over her mouth failed to quell her defiance. Ultimately, her disrespect and unrepentant attitude sealed her fate. The judge delivered a scathing rebuke, expressing a wish for her demise in prison, likening her crimes to those deserving of the electric chair. Number 9. ONeal. ONeal's frantic call to emergency services sent shockwaves through the neighborhood, sparking rumors and speculation about the mysterious assailants lurking within the shadows. The term "white demons" left the dispatcher and the authorities perplexed, fueling curiosity and unease among the community members. As the trial happened, his self-representation became a spectacle of legal drama, captivating the attention of the media and the public alike. His decision to cross-examine his own son added layers of complexity to an already emotionally charged courtroom atmosphere. During the trial, chilling details emerged about the events leading up to the stabbing, painting a clear picture of a troubled family dynamic rife with tension and unresolved conflicts. Witnesses recounted heated arguments and violent outbursts, shedding light on the underlying commotion that ultimately erupted in tragedy. Despite facing overwhelming evidence, he furiously protested his innocence, accusing law enforcement of misconduct and manipulation. His accusations against the prosecution cast doubt on the integrity of the legal system, further dividing public opinion on the case. In a touching moment of reckoning, his son bravely confronted his father in court, recounting the harrowing ordeal of being stabbed by the very man who was supposed to protect him. The emotional impact of his testimony re-echoed throughout the courtroom, generating both sympathy and outrage from onlookers. Following his conviction, the presiding judge delivered a scathing rebuke, denouncing his actions as the epitome of depravity and cruelty. Her impassioned words echoed the sentiments of a community grappling with the aftermath of senseless violence and loss. Number 8. Timothy Simpkins. It was a typical school day at Timberview High School until tensions erupted into chaos. The classroom fight escalated swiftly, leaving a trail of fear and anguish in its wake. Amidst the chaos, he made a grave mistake, one that he can never undo. The courtroom atmosphere was tense as the details of the incident happened. Witnesses recounted the harrowing moments leading up to the gunfire, painting a clear picture of the confusion that gripped the classroom. Shock and disbelief rippled through the courtroom as the video footage of the argument was played, capturing the raw intensity of the confrontation. His defense team emphasized the torment he endured at the hands of bullies, painting a portrait of a troubled teenager pushed to the brink. However, the prosecution painted a contrasting image, highlighting his alleged involvement in drug-related activities, a stark contrast to the narrative of a victim seeking refuge in self-defense. As the trial progressed, emotions ran high, with each passing moment underscoring the gravity of his actions. The victims and their families, their pain noticeable, awaited justice with bated breath. In the face of their anguish, his words of apology seemed wasted, inadequate to ease the wounds he had inflicted. The sentencing marked the culmination of a troubled journey through the justice system. While the verdict may have brought closure to some, the scars left behind serve as a key note of the irrevocable damage caused by senseless violence. As he contemplates the years ahead behind bars, he is haunted by the lives forever altered by his reckless actions. Number 7. Nathan Smith. In the bustling streets of North London, alive with the rhythm of life, filled with the hustle and bustle of people going about their day. Among them, Taki Dean Boudin, a hard-working delivery man, is maneuvering his mini-bike through the network of traffic-choked roads. It was a typical day for Taki, until he made a seemingly innocuous right turn, inadvertently crossing paths with Nathan Smith. Little did he know, this simple maneuver would lead to a tragic chain of events. Nathan Smith, a seemingly ordinary individual, but with an extraordinary tendency for rage, was behind the wheel. The sight of Taki's maneuver infuriated him beyond reason. In a fit of blind fury, Nathan confronted Taki, his anger simmering dangerously close to the surface. As tensions escalated, the situation took a harrowing turn. Taki, desperate to defend himself, used his helmet as a shield against Nathan's onslaught. But Nathan's rage knew no bounds. He lashed out with brutal force, striking Taki not once but twice, leaving him lying on the unforgiving pavement. As the chaos unfolded, passerby watched in horror, unable to intervene in time to save Taki from his tragic fate. Medical professionals arrived on the scene, but their efforts were in vain. His life slipped away, leaving behind a void that could never be filled. In the aftermath of the senseless violence, Nathan attempted to evade responsibility, claiming self-defense in a desperate bid to justify his actions. Yet, the evidence painted a damning picture of his guilt. But Nathan's audacity didn't end there. Faced with the prospect of justice, he chose to flee, evading capture for a year and a half. Finally, the wheels of justice began to turn. Nathan was apprehended, and the trial that followed was a proof of the enduring quest for justice. In a courtroom filled with tension and sorrow, he faced the consequences of his actions. Nathan Smith, the perpetrator of unspeakable violence, was sentenced to life behind bars. Number 6. Keith Allen Ferguson. Keith Allen Ferguson's descent into violence shocked the small community of Kalkaska County, Michigan, where he resided. Prior to the tragic events of November 2014, neighbors described Keith as a quiet and reserved man, giving no indication of the darkness that lurked below the surface of his seemingly ordinary life. However, behind closed doors, the Ferguson household was plagued by tension and turmoil, with Tiffany living in constant fear of her husband's explosive temper. It was revealed during the trial that Keith had a history of abusive behavior towards Tiffany, with multiple instances of physical and emotional abuse reported by friends and family members. Despite these warning signs, she remained trapped in a cycle of domestic abuse, struggling to break free from her abusive marriage for the sake of her children. The fatal confrontation between Keith and Tiffany happened in their family home, a place that should have been a sanctuary but became a scene of unspeakable tragedy. As their 4 children witnessed the horror of their mother's murder, their innocence was shattered, leaving scars that would last a lifetime. In the aftermath of the murders, the community rallied around the grieving family, offering support and solidarity in the face of unimaginable loss. Candlelight vigils were held in memory of Tiffany and James Weber, honoring their lives and condemning the senseless violence that had torn them away from their loved ones. Despite Keith Ferguson's brazen defiance and lack of remorse throughout the trial, justice prevailed in the end. The plea deal that sentenced him to life imprisonment without release provided an appearance of closure for Tiffany's family and friends, although the pain of their loss would never truly fade. Now it's time for today's subscribers pick. Once upon a time, in the bustling city of Beacon Hills, there was a notorious assassin known only as Shadowblade. His real name was Ethan, but few knew that. He lurked in the shadows, striking fear into the hearts of many. His reputation preceded him, whispers of his cold-hearted killings echoing through the streets. One fateful evening, Ethan received a lucrative contract to eliminate a high-profile target. With precision and stealth, he carried out the deed, leaving behind no trace of his presence except for the lifeless body of his victim. But this time, something went awry. A witness spotted him fleeing the scene, and before long, the authorities were hot on his trail. Caught red-handed, Ethan found himself standing trial in the grand courthouse of Beacon Hills. The courtroom buzzed with anticipation as the trial commenced. The prosecution painted him as a heartless killer, responsible for countless lives lost. But Ethan remained unfazed, his icy demeanor sending shivers down the spines of everyone present. Families wept for their loved ones taken too soon by his hand. Yet throughout it all, Ethan sat stoically, his expression unchanged. No remorse flickered in his eyes, no hint of guilt tainted his features. What do you think contributed to making Ethan the ruthless killer that he was? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Number 5. Michael Swanson. Michael Swanson, at the tender age of 17, embarked on a horrifying rampage, taking the lives of 2 innocent gas station workers in the state of Iowa within a shockingly short span of just an hour. His actions were as chilling as they were inexplicable. Clad in a ski mask and wielding a handgun, Swanson brazenly entered a gas station in Algona, Iowa, demanding money and cigarettes from Vicky Bowman Hall, a 47-year-old attendant. Despite complying with his demands without hesitation, Hall was callously shot and killed by him. An hour later, in Humboldt, Iowa, he repeated his evil act, this time targeting Sheila Myers, another gas station worker. Despite their compliance with his demands, both victims met a tragic end, highlighting his forbidding intentions. When questioned about his motives, Swanson revealed a chilling indifference, expressing a sense of power in his actions. He confessed to intentionally and deliberately taking the lives of the victims, demonstrating a disturbing lack of remorse or empathy. Even as the victims' loved ones confronted him during the trial, he remained cold and dispassionate, showing no signs of regret for his actions. His lack of remorse and his chilling manner painted a picture of a remorseless individual driven solely by a desire for power and control. Ultimately, Swanson was convicted on multiple charges, including first-degree murder and burglary. He was sentenced to spend the rest of his life behind bars, deemed too dangerous and unpredictable to ever be released back into society. However, even behind bars, his capacity for violence remained unabated, as evidenced by his brutal assault on another inmate just 4 years into his sentence. Number 4. Dimitrios Pagos. Dimitrios Pagos, a 17-year-old, caused chaos at Santa Fe High School in Texas on May 18, 2018, by unleashing a horrifying school shooting. Using weapons he found in his father's closet, a shotgun and a revolver, he targeted an art class at 7:32 a.m. In a frightening twist, he seemed to celebrate in the violence, playing music and cracking jokes as he fired, even reciting phrases like, "Another one bites the dust," after each victim fell. As the shots echoed through the school, chaos ensued. One student described the horror of seeing a friend fall, while others sought refuge under tables, fearing for their lives. Eventually, after a half-hour of hiding in a closet, Pagos surrendered to police. Shockingly, he admitted that he had planned to end his own life after the massacre, but lacked the courage to do so. He claimed to spare certain students, perhaps to spread his story. He later claimed he had been a victim of bullying at the school, a claim disputed by the institution, but supported by his father. His father described him as a victim, not a criminal, implying that something had changed within him. Nonetheless, his serious charges, including capital murder and aggravated assault against a public servant. Despite being denied bond, his trial has been delayed for 5 years. Throughout this ordeal, he has shown no remorse or acceptance of responsibility for his actions. 10 lives were lost that day, leaving a scar on the community that still lingers. The tragedy still has a devastating impact on the lives of friends and family who lost their loved ones, a wound that has yet to heal. Number 3. Lindley Raburn. In the cold December air of 2005, as festive decorations adorned the neighborhood, Lindley Raburn and A.J. Smith embarked on a harrowing journey that would forever stain the holiday season for the community of Oregon. Dale Ross III, a seemingly unsuspecting victim, had no idea that his routine evening walk with his beloved dog would turn into a nightmare organized by 2 individuals consumed by drugs and desperation. What makes this case particularly chilling is the revelation of Lindley's role as the aggressor. In a society where such crimes are often attributed to male perpetrators, the involvement of a woman in such an evil act is both shocking and perplexing. As the couple stumbled upon Dale outside his home, their initial intention was likely just to rob him. However, the influence of illegal substances clouded their judgment, escalating the situation into a brutal assault. The aftermath of the crime reveals the true extent of their criminality. Not content with merely robbing Dale, Lindley and AJ ruthlessly stripped him naked, leaving him exposed and vulnerable. But perhaps the most chilling moment came when Lindley, devoid of empathy or remorse, decided that Dale posed a threat to their freedom. In a chilling display of cold-bloodedness, she turned a firearm on him, extinguishing his life without a second thought. The level of detail provided by Lindley during her confession paints a clear picture of the events that transpired that fateful night. Her willingness to cooperate with authorities in recounting every grisly detail speaks volumes about her mindset at the time and the utter lack of remorse for her actions. They also stole his car, using it to further their escape and even bragging to a friend about their vile deeds. Number 2. Peyton Jenden. On May 14, 2022, a chilling event happened in Buffalo, New York, when an 18-year-old named Peyton Jenden perpetrated an evil mass shooting that resulted in the tragic loss of 10 lives. What made this already horrifying situation even more distressing was the fact that all 10 victims were black. Adding to the shock, Jenden brazenly live-streamed part of the attack for an audience to witness from the safety of their homes. Following his arrest at the scene, law enforcement delved into his background, discovering a disturbing 180-page manifesto at his residence. This manifesto contained racial insult, a detailed plan of the attack, and other troubling content, providing insight into the perpetrator's warped mindset. As the case progressed to trial, he faced a multitude of charges, including hate crimes resulting in death, attempted hate crimes, and various firearm-related offenses. Throughout the proceedings, he remained impassionate, unmoved by the emotional testimonies of his victims' families, who pleaded for accountability and remorse. In a dramatic courtroom moment, a father of one of the victims couldn't contain his grief and launched himself at him, prompting chaos. Despite initially pleading not guilty, he eventually changed his plea to guilty on all state charges, including murder, domestic terrorism, and hate crimes. The sentencing hearing was a sobering moment as the judge delivered a devastating condemnation of his actions, declaring that there was no place in society for his hateful ideologies. He received the harshest punishment possible, 11 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole, ensuring he would never again walk free. Number 1. Tyrell Webster. Tyrell Webster, also known as Webster, exhibited shocking behavior during his court appearances, leaving many bewildered by his lack of remorse. Back in 2012, in a cold-blooded act, Tyrell took the life of a 47-year-old man named Grover Watson in Cincinnati. What led to the tragic incident remains somewhat unclear, but it happened during a laundry visit to Grover's place, where an altercation escalated to Tyrell fatally shooting his friend with a firearm. What makes this case even more unsettling is his family history, with his brother also imprisoned for a separate murder charge. In court, instead of showing any passionate sign of remorse or even basic respect for the proceedings, he was often seen laughing, looking bored, and dodging questions he deemed insignificant. Such behavior led to his lawyers quitting, further delaying the trial. Even during moments of profound emotion, such as when Carolyn, the victim's sister who is blind, bravely addressed him, asking for forgiveness through her faith, he laughed at her inability to see his disrespectful manner. However, Carolyn had the last touching word when the judge brought attention to his disrespectful laughter. She highlighted the harsh reality awaiting him behind prison walls, where his manner would drastically change, and his laughter would fade away as he faced the consequences of his actions. The judge presiding over the case emphasized that he sealed his own fate through his dismissive and disrespectful conduct throughout the trial. This case, with its layers of tragedy and heartlessness, leaves a profound impact. Laughing in the face of a grieving family member, especially one who seeks forgiveness, is a hateful act that underscores a lack of remorse and empathy, qualities essential for true redemption. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.